Thank you everyone for joining. In the way of introduction, I am one of the founders here at Intentwise. Intentwise, we are a technology company and we work with brands, sellers, agencies, and some aggregators as well. And we help them with fundamentally two things. One is we ad optimization. And the second component we're going to talk about more is data and analytics. And over the last 3 to 4 years, we have had sizable spend go through the platform. And what that has done is we have had the opportunity to partner with many of our clients in the context of data and really think through how to solve their data challenges. And also just on a personal front as well, before starting Intentwise, I ran data management and digital advertising for $1 billion consumer internet company called Orbitz, which has since been acquired by Expedia. But the point of saying that is that we have gone through the ringer around data, large-scale data in varying environments, and putting a strategy around it and executing on it over long periods of time. And with today's webinar, my goal is to bring forward some of those learnings and share those with you. Agenda for today, what I'm going to do to begin with is just frame up the problem or the opportunity we have with data, especially in marketplaces like Amazon, the current challenges that come in the way, leading up to a framework to think about data strategy, just the enabling components of that data strategy, some do's and don'ts from past experience, ways in which Intentwise can help, and then we can spend some time with Q&A. With that, let me dive in. Let me begin by framing the problem from the viewpoint of a typical shopper on Amazon, right? So this is actually a screenshot from my own mobile phone. I search vacuum cleaners. And just thinking through all of the different factors or signals that influence a purchase decision, it's pricing, it's organic ranking, it's the Amazon choice or bestseller badging. There's just a lot of these shopper-facing signals that influence a shopper's purchase decision. And for those of you, for instance, managing Amazon advertising, I think we can all agree that a lot of times changes in performance happen because of factors that you just don't see in the Amazon data. It's one of these factors, right? You lose a bestseller badge, pricing changes, so on and so forth. Point being, there's a lot of customer-facing or shopper-facing signals that influence purchasing decisions and hence influence the performance you see in your own data. So that's one end of the story. The other end of the story, if you are a brand or a seller, right, what are you dealing with today when it comes to data? Number one, there is advertising data in the ad portals, sponsored ads, and if you're running DSP, you've got that. And then whether you're vendor central or seller central, there is sales diagnostics, there's inventory related data, there is FBA related data, and there's just a whole host of data sets. And I know today many of you are, either manually downloading them, trying to connect them and make some sense out of it. Oftentimes it's time consuming. And then all of these challenges, this view gets further more complex if you're in a cross-channel environment. So if you're having to now deal with not just Amazon, but Walmart, Target, so on and so forth. So that's on the brand or seller-centric side of what you're having to deal with when it comes to data. Given that, our thesis is the following. In order for you to compete effectively on marketplaces such as Amazon, there's a real need to have this ability to collect and organize and leverage these disparate data sets in the way you manage all aspects of the channel, including advertising. So I think it's not a hard thesis to get behind. I think we can all agree with that. The question though is, what is coming in the way of that today? And that's when I just want to talk about some of the core challenges that we certainly have seen our clients face. There's many, but I'll just sum it up into kind of broad buckets. Number one, collection of data is a challenge. And by the way, when I say data, I'm going to keep referring to brand-centric data as these data sets, and shopper-centric data as all of these signals. Okay, so when it comes to data collection, not all data has API connectivity on the Amazon portal. So there's manual downloads of data, and on the shopper side, again, there's no easy data available for you there. So in general, data collection has been a challenge and continues to be a challenge. The second problem we've got is data sets are fragmented. So ad data is separate from sales diagnostic data, which is separate from something else. And you are having to connect these data sets yourself. So data fragmentation is another issue. The third one is constant change. Again, if you're in the advertising universe like us, there's new formats coming up all the time. There's new metrics to deal with and understand and socialize. So that's another aspect. And then the last problem, which actually is an outcome of all of these above things, is I can't tell you the number of times I get into conversations and find out that a particular brand or seller has not been owning their data, owning as in, it could be as simple as download and store it somewhere internally so you have access to it for long periods of time. And so there is generally a lack of data ownership of your own data because of all these other challenges, okay? So now in that context, is what we have to frame our data strategy, right? How do we overcome these challenges and stay super competitive? Because we firmly believe that as we progress here, the companies that invest and manage to corral all this data will outcompete the rest, okay? So let's now talk about data strategy. Broadly speaking, data strategy has, no matter what the environment is or what the context is, it has some universal goals, right? So I'll quickly run through these. What you're trying to achieve is a certain level of reliability and accuracy with the data you collect, comprehensiveness of data so that you get the full picture of what's happening, speed, so shortening this time to insight. What I mean by that is, if you have an interesting question of your data and it takes 4 weeks to answer it, that's usually not good enough. So what infrastructure and what process do you have to shorten that time to insight? And then the last piece, which is how do you operationalize those insights? Sometimes it is just setting up standard operating procedures. Sometimes it is taking insight from the data and operationalize it in some automated system. But ultimately, these are the attributes of, of a good data environment, and your data strategy should help you get there. With that, I want to now share with you a framework that has certainly worked for us. But before I do that, I do want to touch on a couple of characteristics of the types of data we just discussed, right? So one, what I call brand-centric data, right? The stuff you can download off of Amazon portals. Generally, that data tends to be relatively high in precision and low in volume, okay? The shopper-centric data, with that I mean, you may be going out and getting organic rank data by every keyword multiple times a day. You may be getting review content. That type of data tends to be a little bit low on precision and high on volume, okay? And these data sets just need different types of solutions. And so I just want to draw that distinction, before I kind of move forward in this presentation. Now let's talk about a framework to think about data strategy. And I'll talk about this in simple terms, and this is certainly how we think about it internally. If you look at any data set's journey, right, there's kind of 4 phases: collection, connecting, and enriching. So when I say what I mean by connecting and enriching is, oftentimes when you have fragmented data sets, when you connect them, there is additional insight you can gain. I'll talk about this more, but simple use case can be connecting advertising data with organic sales data, right? And then enriching could mean a number of things. One, you may download product level information from Amazon, but you may have your own categorization of products, or you may have your own definition of what is a brand keyword versus a non-brand keyword. So that's what I mean by enriching that data. Visualize and analyze, and this is the place where you build out dashboards, make data accessible for analysis. And then the last piece is, okay, operationalizing all that insight. So whatever you do, I think it'll be helpful for you to think about these 4 buckets. And I would just overlay on top of it the different types of data, because the challenges that you're to contend with is very different with each of these types of data. And the one other thing I would add here is, from a prioritization perspective, depending on where you're today, for instance, if you're at a place where you're not collecting and storing all these data in a good database somewhere, I would highly encourage you to focus on getting your brand-centric data organized first, and then you can start to move towards the shopper-centric stuff. Okay. Now you may be looking at this going, okay, so this is all complex. What do I do? What is the next step I can take? The recommendation I have with this framework is, this doesn't have to be complex. You can start really small, but the goal here is to have a path where you will make incremental progress quarter after quarter after quarter. For instance, here's a simple strategy you might have for the next 3 months. So let's say you are a company that isn't really collecting and owning your advertising and sales data. Over the next 3 months, you could pretty much say, look, our focus is, let's get these 2 pieces of data sets organized. We will actually make a choice around where we store it. So this could be BigQuery's Google's database. So this is just an example. And then we could use Google Data Studio for visualization. And by the way, let's go build out at least 2 use cases of dashboards and set up procedures to operationalize them, which could be audits of accounts and performance diagnostics. This is just one example. Okay. And if you're an organization that already has an IT team and a data infrastructure, perhaps that first layer can go pretty fast, but maybe you want to start focusing on how do we collect share of voice data and reviews and so on and so forth, which should be that second segment. Again, I want to emphasize that the approach here has to be one where you're not necessarily boiling the ocean, but you've got quarterly goals of how you want to make progress, and think about these 4 buckets or life cycles of data, and prioritize the data sets that you end up using the most first, pull the thread through. But I will say that you do have to make a couple of choices though, which is, where are you going to store the data, and what tools are you going to use to build visualizations on top of it? Okay. My agency friends that are on the call here, I know this is something you're contending with today, because you have one additional unique challenge of being able to present interesting, aesthetically good looking dashboards to your clients. So again, what I'd say is, start small, but absolutely have kind of quarterly goals around how you're going to make progress. And you could just use this matrix to fill this out. 12 months from now, you should be in a much better place than you are today. Right? A note on connecting of data, right? So over the last 2 decades, I've dealt with lots of different scenarios around data. One thing I've always found is, when data sets are fragmented, the moment you connect them, there's always cool new insight, right? And I want to illustrate that with an example here. For instance, when you connect sponsored ads, DSP, and sales diagnostics data together, the types of insights that are now possible, most of you are familiar with ACOS versus TACOS, but you could also quickly figure out gaps in advertised ASINs. I can't tell you the number of times we see this, where when we compare products being advertised versus products in, let's say, Vendor Central or Seller Central, there's big gaps there. You could even look at organic sales versus ad revenue disparities by product. You could correlate DSP spend with brand search volume. Point being, there is magic when you connect data sets, especially when those data sets are fragmented, which is part of the reason why we have this distinct bucket called connect and enrich. Now the question is, okay, you get the theoretical framework, but what are the underlying components that actually help you get there? Okay? So here's what a infrastructure stack looks like. Now, whether you build it, you buy it, you use a third-party solution, it really doesn't matter, but these are the components. And depending on where you are in terms of your internal maturity, team sizes, you can make different choices here. But on the collection side, the way data is going to get collected is you either make those API integrations, MWS APIs, and whatever other APIs available to you. So you're going to have to make investments in connecting to those APIs. And then on the shopper side, it is literally, you need some tech to go crawl that data. So those are the two essential components, and they both feed into some kind of a data storage. Okay. So those make up the collection layer of any tech stack that you will see. When it comes to connect and enrich, it is important to have a marketplace-centric data model, meaning what does my advertising data look like, and what does my sales data look like, what does my inventory data look like, and how do they all seamlessly connect together so that when some analyst is going at that data and querying stuff, he can pull all of that together in a unified manner. So data models become important. And then this ability to tag stuff, because once you get the data, each business has its own nuances, and you may want to add additional metadata to that data. So that's where tagging becomes important. And then the next layer, which is visualize and analyze. So you're going to do dashboard, right? So some dashboarding tool, whether that's a Tableau or Google Data Studio or Power BI, has to be part of the tool set. And if you are at a place where you have teams doing advanced analysis, like statistical analysis, you may even need tools like SAS and R to support the advanced analytics component. And then the last piece, of course, is alerting, automated actions, and standard operating procedures on the data that's been found. So that is what a tech stack looks like that you will need to execute your data strategy. You see a bucket called advanced analytics here, which I think ties to artificial AI and application of AI. And of course, no conversation on data strategy is complete without talking about AI. But what you do with data strategy heavily influences how your organization can go leverage the advances in AI. So a few things on AI. The AI adoption in different use cases is continuing to accelerate. And I've got some sample use cases here. Most of you are familiar with, application of AI in bid management, but AI can be applied to text analysis of reviews, inventory optimization, detecting anomalies in your channel performance. So there's just many use cases where AI can be applied. But it is important to understand that for that to work, for your organization to truly leverage AI, there's at least three things that are very essential. High quality data, large volumes of data, and data that can be connectable, right? And so just keep this in mind as you think about your data strategy. You may not be applying any advanced analytics today, but if you want to do it tomorrow or a year from now, it is important to have your data organized. Otherwise, that's not possible. Right? A few additional notes of learnings from the past. Number one is, again, I can't stress this enough. This is probably the number one reason why data projects fail, right? Don't boil the ocean, right? You have to aim for consistent incremental progress. If you have projects where the first time anything is useful is 6-9 months out, I can tell you that's probably already a problem. Again, so aim for consistent incremental progress, no matter what your current state is. Just aim for quarterly improvements and leverage the framework I shared with you to the extent that it can be useful to you. A note about dashboards. I think a lot of us want great dashboards. We invest in building them out. But the interesting thing about dashboards is, in a company that is very data agile and data centric, dashboards should be becoming stale constantly. And that's because you're asking new questions, right? So that should kind of be the DNA and culture, and support this notion that, we continuously build new dashboards and answer new questions. The third point I want to make is, no offense to whoever likes beavers, but a beaver mindset is what we call, is kind of essential in this data realm. Apparently, beavers pretty much store everything. You should do the same. And you never know when that will come handy and how that can be useful. But it's always hard to solve that problem looking backwards. Storage and compute costs are really rapidly, have declined over the last decade and continue to decline. So again, have this mindset of storing everything. Don't throw data away, okay? The fourth point, which again, I see this a lot, especially around advertising. I've run into many clients where they would be using a platform, but what happens is that if they have to cut the cord, they don't have easy access to their historic data. Okay, that's a real problem. You need to own your data. Go back and look at what's happening today and make sure that you have access to your own data, and it'll stay with you no matter what your third-party service provider relationships are. And kind of the last point I will make is investing in your team's skills, right? The reality is Excel will be there, probably most ubiquitously used. So investing in Excel skills, because you could do some cool, interesting, advanced things. And you could run regression analysis in Excel if you want to. So Excel is one. The second priority would be SQL. If your data is getting stored in a database, having SQL skills will be super important, whether that's to build out dashboards or do some ad hoc analysis. And if there's someone in your team that knows SQL, go become best friends with them. Buy them some coffee, buy them some lunch. But SQL skills are going to come super handy. And then the third, more advanced kind of skills that you want to build on the team is statistical analysis. But yeah, so something to think about, and you can kind of choose to what extent you want to invest there. With that, I think I will end with talking about just what are we doing and how are we helping companies further their data strategy. Just very simply, look, our goal simply is to enable a data and analytics infrastructure for you that helps you really compete more effectively on Amazon. So that's our goal. And in that context, what we have done is, as part of our analytics solution, there's a few things we have done from bottom up, right? So we have put in the hard yards to build out integrations into both the brand-centric data and shopper-centric data. And we can pull that into what we call a marketplace data store for you. Many of our clients are already doing that. And with that data, we can either pipe it into your systems, or you can connect with the API, or you could just leverage the data store the way it is. In order to connect all the pieces, we have put in a lot of thought and time into coming up with a marketplace-centric data model, which, if you were to leverage our analytics infrastructure, we would educate and socialize you. That could be super helpful for you. We have pre-built connectors. So if you are a Google Data Studio shop, we have a pre-built Data Studio connector. Same with Tableau, same with Excel. And then we also have enabled alerting capability within the platform. And then we're going to make more and more advances here. And one other note, as I talk about this, is we have been an Amazon-centric company, but as of this week, we have integrated Instacart, and adding other retailers is very much a priority for us, and we'll continue to make progress down that path. I think with that, we'll call this a wrap. Wish you well for Q4. We will be in touch, and we'll share out the recording shortly. Thank you so much.